Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our PhD application support webinar. This is part of the PhD applicant support program. And we're going to share a few slides here. So what is this program? The PhD application or PhD applicant support program rather is a pilot program led by CICS student and staff volunteers. This program has been developed as part of the CICS Committee Against Racism and for Equity. The goal of the PhD applicant super program is to provide application guidance and help to prospective PhD and MS PhD students. So you're already probably familiar with the program. You know us through social media and our website. But just as a reminder, this program is actually entirely separate from the admissions process itself. What we're doing here is provide help to you as applicants and help you build a strong application and answer your questions. But just remember, this program is separate from admissions and the guidance comes from, well, us. We are volunteer PhD students and staff. I think.
Hi, so I'm Nader, and I'm also a PhD student here. I'm going to go over the application process a little bit. We also have Eileen, who heads the graduate program over here, graduate admission. So first steps. You can visit our website to look at what research each of the faculty members is working on so that you get an idea of who you might want to work with. It gives you a general overview of what kinds of areas you might be applying or focusing your application towards, because you do want to kind of, when you write your statement of purpose, focus in on research and faculty that you're interested in working with. There's also information about how to apply on the website. Application deadline is December 15th. And we're just going to go over just a few things about the application process in the next few slides. Basically, most of it is covered in the website and on this link for the prospective graduates, but we just wanted to cover a few of the basics for you. Can we go to the next slide? All right, so there's an online application, and I'll show you that in the next slide. Just a brief overview of what goes part of it. There's additionally a personal statement that you should write, and we'll cover details of what this should include very shortly. Additionally, you need to include a resume or CV. This should cover both educational and extracurriculars or internship experiences. You do need to provide transcripts. Sorry. No worries. Transcripts, both an official transcript needs to be sent to the graduate school, and there's an unofficial transcript that gets added to the application process that you'll see in the next few slides. Letters of recommendation, you need 2 of those, and you may need GRE scores and TOEFL. So the way that GRE scores work is they are optional for PhD applicants, but if you are looking to go into the master's program, you do need them. So if you want to potentially go into the master's program, you'll have to do that. I think we'll go into test scores and the TOEFL into more detail in the next couple of slides. So next slide. The application process, this is just a general overview. You'll get a checklist of each of these things when you go through the application process. This is all done centralized through the graduate school, so it's not covered directly by the College of Information and Computer Sciences. So this is all one central application that the graduate school handles for all of the UMass graduates. So,
sorry, did you mean to say?
I was just going to say, you can see all the various aspects that you'll need to put in here. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Next slide. So letters of recommendation, you can submit. You need to submit at least 2. You can submit up to 3. You want to select letter writers that can talk about your research experience and your potential to conduct research. So even if you haven't had any research experience, you want somebody who can speak to your potential for research. Oftentimes, this is going to be somebody in a faculty position. If you have some unique internship experience, possibly an industry research lab, those can help too. It's possible that you don't have enough individuals who can speak to your research potential. You should really try to find a professor that you did well in their class, that you might have stood out a little bit, that you can get, because what they're really looking for is a strong research background or a strong potential to conduct research. You also want to make sure that they can cover a range of different skills that you might have had. So you don't want it all to be sort of a one-sided experience where you're only highlighted as good in one specific area. You want sort of some breadth. Once you put references into the application, you actually have to pay the application fee before your reference letters or your request for references will be sent out to your reference writer or your letter writers. So you need to make sure that you have paid the application fee before, so that they can send in their references.
We have a quick question from the chat. Can the application be edited once fees have been paid or the application has been submitted? I hope to submit early so that my recommenders get enough time to upload letters, but that will require early submission.
I'm actually not sure of this. Does Eileen, can you speak to this at all?
I can answer that. Yes, you can edit your, oh, I apologize. My picture just froze. You can edit your application, but you wouldn't want to do that after January 1st because we would have downloaded all the applications and updates and letters and things like that prior to that time. If after January 1st you had something you wanted to change in your application, you would email me and let me know, and then we would work through it together.
Awesome. Thank you, Eileen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Eileen.
Okay, I can go to next
and
slide.
Then next set of slides. So once you get into the application, you'll see that the GPA is based on a 4.0 scale. So you'll need to rescale your grades potentially. You know, I know some schools do 5.0 average scale, etc. So it'll also tell you this, but it'll give you guidance of how to do the rescaling based off of percentages. This is what I was trying to say about GRE earlier. GRE is not required for PhD applicants, but if you do want to enter the master's program to do a master's only, or to be considered to enter the master's program if you don't get into the PhD program, then you'll want to submit your GRE. Additionally, for international students, we understand that Iran and China have some difficulties at times getting the TOEFL completed. So you can alternatively take the Duolingo English test, and that will be accepted if you are unable to complete the TOEFL. Additionally, I think this is also in the frequently asked questions on our website, but TOEFL is only required for international students if, there's an exemption for international students who will have completed 2 academic years in the US just prior to becoming full-time students. So if you have worked, completed 2 academic years as a full-time student just prior to entering the grad program, then you can waive the TOEFL as well for that. And then finally, next set of slides, what happens after submitting. Admissions decisions will go out on a rolling basis. They start around January 30th to March 15th. If you're accepted, there's a program called Candidate Friday, where you get to participate and check out what the program is, potentially speak to some faculty members, etc., in order to help you decide whether you want to come to UMass. I believe this year with the pandemic going on, this will be an online virtual affair. So anyone should be able to join in. And then if you accepted, you must confirm your decision by April 15th. This is actually something that's set up across pretty much all the schools, an April 15th deadline. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, since we do have a few questions about the application and the GRE and the TOEFL scores, let's go ahead and take some of these questions. So is there any application fee waiver available? Yes, Eileen, do you want to speak more to that?
Sure. So this is our second cycle of the application fee waiver process. So on the website, there is a link to an application where you can submit, I think there's 2 short essays, and you can submit that for a waiver. We do have a limited number, but of course I encourage you to submit an application for that. Yep.
Does the official transcript need to be mailed to the graduate school right now during the application before acceptance, or does one only need to upload an unofficial transcript for now?
You only need an unofficial transcript until you are accepted and you arrive here on campus. You would then bring your official transcript with you.
Awesome. And for international students, can we submit our IELTS scores instead of the TOEFL as an alternative?
Yes. Yep. You definitely want to look at the graduate school link. It's provided on our website and obviously on the grad school link page, where they go through all the test scores that they're accepting this year. Duolingo is temporary and they are allowing it this year, and that it may change for next year, but they have all the information on the grad school site.
And is the GRE required for MS PhD applicants? Is it any kind of disadvantage if they cannot submit the scores?
So if you would consider joining us in the master's program, if you were not accepted to the PhD program, you should submit your GRE scores. So once the faculty have completed their recruiting of students into the PhD program, the master's program will look at all of the remaining students and select a pretty large number of those applicants to come to our master's program. But you would have to have had a GRE score submitted.
Okay. And we have a very specific question about TOEFL scores. Would a TOEFL score of 84 be considered? So would that application be reviewed and considered valid?
So the graduate school has a minimum number of, for the TOEFL, which is 85. You can email me and maybe we can talk about this separately. That would be fine. But they do have a minimum score. You know, maybe we could talk about like another test you could take in the meantime. It would give you a little bit more time to do that. So that's what I'm talking about. Maybe taking it again. We want to give you that opportunity.
Another question is, what do you mean by official transcript? What qualifies for it?
Sure. So an official transcript is directly from the institution, and it is sealed in an envelope, and you would bring it to the graduate school when you get here.
So it's something you have to request to your school.
Yes.
Right.
And I think it's also something that officially states your marks for every subject, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. But if you, in the meantime, you just have an unofficial copy, many of you will have all of your grades except for that last semester or 2 semesters. So that's fine for the application.
Is there financial aid and assistance for MS students?
Want me to answer that?
Yeah.
No, we don't have assistantships for master's students that would provide a tuition waiver. We do have some hourly positions, you know, some greater positions within the college that you can do, but nothing that would provide a tuition waiver or certainly provide enough income to fully support you.
Okay. If an applicant submits the GRE scores, will they be reviewed and considered, even if they're optional?
So you mean in terms of the PhD application?
I think so. I think that's what the question was about. Right, since they're optional, if they're submitted, will they be considered in the review? I don't know that.
Yeah, the faculty really are not looking at GRE scores. It's really important that you understand that your application is being reviewed holistically, and a GRE score that's why we don't have them anymore for PhD applicants. We're really looking at research potential and perseverance, things like that. That's what the faculty are looking for. So if you do submit them, don't worry, it's not going to work against you.
Eileen, there's two questions which are sort of upvoted heavily and might need answering. One of which is how many PhD students do you normally enroll? And the other is how much does the recommender's profile matter?
Okay, so it will vary year to year because of the number of PhD students that the faculty need. So it's the demand in terms of how many they're looking for to fill their labs, so what they have for funding, things like that. So it does vary. I would say it's probably in the range of, we would have between 50 and 75 PhD students maybe each fall that are new PhD students. But again, it does depend on the faculty, who, if they need PhD students this year, how many they've had complete their PhD. And the recommender's profile, how much does it matter? I'm not really sure how to answer that, I think. Does anybody else want to answer that?
I'm not sure that there is a specific answer to that. I think whoever can speak to your research potential the best, that's what's going to have the most weight. So you can have the president of your company write a letter, and if it's not about your research potential, they're going to ignore it. I can tell you that 100%.
Right. Agreed. Or skills that represent your research potential, like skills that talk about skills that you need in a research environment.
Nader, I remember you were saying earlier that if you have the option of like one person who is not such a big shot but knows you very well versus another person who's a big shot but does not know you very well.
Yeah. You want the person who knows you well and can speak to your research potential. So I have, at least my advisor has told me that I had 3 recommendation letters. I came from industry. I had somebody who's near the top of a very well-known company in tech. You've got millions of people who use their product, and that did not get weighed nearly as closely, even though this person worked with me in depth for 5 years, could speak very well to my work. Instead, a professor that I did research with for about 6 months online remotely is the person who actually got me convinced my advisor that I could do research, even though the other stuff that I did in industry was, potentially new, groundbreaking, creative kinds of stuff. It was the actual research potential from somebody who conducts research as a faculty member, even though this was not a faculty member at a top ranked school. So take that, this is one experience, but I think it goes to what people are looking for. They're looking for, potential to do research.
Additionally, I think reference letter writers are pretty honest. So if they don't know you that well, that will shine through the letter. And so you want people that can actually talk about your work, despite how they reach out to you. Like, it'll be very clear in the reference letter.
Can I make one more comment on that? I think it's important to also remember that if you've had an experience in research with a faculty member and you had some results that you didn't want, or things didn't go well, but you persevered and you ended up with new results, and you sort of turn things around. Those are really important things to have in an application, because it does show that, things don't always go perfectly in research, of course. And so when you can demonstrate that you persevered through a difficult situation, I think I know that's really important to faculty, because I've seen comments about that.
Eileen, I think there's a related question which you might be able to answer, which is there a deadline for recommenders to submit a letter of recommendation? I assume, so this person assumes that it's not the same as the application deadline.
Right. So unfortunately, that's how the application is designed, where you submit everything and then your recommenders get the email. So we do have to allow that sort of 2-3 weeks after the 15th, if that's when you've submitted it, for the letters to come in. So I'm constantly downloading and updating applications for the faculty. If it gets to be into January, I will still keep looking. If new materials come in, I'll still pull them in. It's just, the faculty really work really hard in January to get their recruiting done. So if it's any later than January, then they may not see it. So the sooner the better. So if you can submit your application before December 15th, that would be great.
So in the interest of time, and so that we actually get to the main panel and all of that, should we just keep going with the presentation and maybe come back to some of these questions? I think a lot of this is going to be answered in the end, right?
Yes, let's go quickly through the end of the presentation, and then we'll reserve all of the rest of the time for questions.
Sure. Yeah.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is what to include in the personal statement or the statement of purpose. And this is probably one of the main components of your application. So the goal of the statement of purpose is to demonstrate your academic objectives along with how you're a good match for CICS and vice versa, how CICS is a good match for you. And the key thing that you want to make sure that you get across in this is your potential to do research. Now, you can do this either through demonstrating your academic background or past experiences, but the goal is to actually get across that you have the potential to do research. If you don't have research experience, you can talk about the skills that are needed in research and show that with other projects you've done or work you've done in the industry, or relevant personal details as well. You definitely want to include why you're a good applicant, why you're a good fit for the department, and why the department is a good fit for you. I think a lot of people miss out on the latter one, which is why the department is a good fit for you. Definitely include things for that. And this could be things like, I am interested in certain organizations on campus, or the goal of CICS, which is computing for this common good, it works for me, things like that. So that should be good. And then,
sorry, my slides are going haywire. That's okay.
And then you definitely want to talk about why you want to pursue a PhD. That's important. Why has your journey led you to applying to a PhD program? And what do you want to do after that? How is that going to build your career? So there's a few things you want to consider. So in terms of language, you want to make sure that you're using your active voice instead of a passive voice. So you're saying that I did this. And you definitely want to demonstrate confidence, and assertiveness is definitely good. So I've seen some SOPs where people are not doing that, but just be confident. You don't need to get your feelings across about your work. You can if you've done something, you can say that confidently. The language should be positive and focused, just leading on from the previous point. And you can use discipline-specific terminology because your professors are reading this, so they will be fine with understanding a sort of technical terminology. One key thing is looking out for hedge expressions, which are things like, if you're saying things like I may be, or I almost, or I somewhat, things like those types of keywords. you don't want to use them, because what they do is they weaken your point, and it is common for minority and underrepresented applicants to do that, and it's almost subconscious. So you definitely want to go through your SOP and see anytime you use any of these hedge expressions, are they do I actually need it, or is it weakening my point? In terms of experience, you want to show, not just tell. So you do want to tell, but you want to show it through your, you want to show your experience through examples. And you definitely, leading on from the previous slide, you don't want to talk about your own feelings about those experiences, because that might, if it's sort of negative, that might undermine that experience. So you want to show, not just tell. You want to mention challenges and how you overcame them, because that represents persistence and resilience, which are key components for doing research and being in a PhD program. And decisions that you take appear more powerful when explained. So instead of saying, I applied for this job, what made you apply for this job? What was your reasoning? Things like that. So in terms of research, you want to have clear research interests. They should not be vague or disparate. You can show some level of clarity, but you don't have to be very precise about it either. You can talk about certain areas that you're interested in, natural language processing or cryptography or security. But you definitely want to hone down on a certain area or areas that you're interested in doing research in. You also don't want to be too specific unless they tie to a particular faculty in their projects, because if you're too specific and no one else has funding to do that kind of work, it might be difficult for a professor to approach you. I think the latter is less common, but you want to keep that in the back of your mind. You want to connect your research interests to faculties at UMass, that is for sure. You should mention specific faculties that you're interested in working with in your SOP. You can mention more than one. And you should show how there's an overlap in your research interests and what the faculties are doing at UMass. It is also fine to talk about switching to a different research area from your prior work. And I've seen this, so certain people have talked about their current, what they want to do and only research experience from that. But they have a lot of other research experience that they miss out on. And so you want to talk about all your potential research experiences that you've had. And then you can, after that, you can say, I want to now switch to XYZ field for whatever reasons that make you want to switch to that field. So don't definitely include all your experiences, and then you can talk about switching to a different research area. That is fine. And I think lastly, details. Small details matter. It should be polished. There shouldn't be any spelling mistakes or grammatical errors. Have as many people as you can proofread it. And the second thing is generic statements like I like school or I've always loved computer science since I was a kid. They should be avoided because they don't actually differentiate you. And I think it's almost true for everyone coming in. So be aware of not including generic statements, but at the same time, you can say these things while explaining them, and that is fine. Just some minor details. You should include your full name and the proposed program of study. So PhD, computer science PhD at UMass Amherst. Those things should be included at the top of each page. It's just neater. And you want to follow admission guidelines. You don't want to go over the page limit. And I would also recommend actually reaching the page limit. If it's 2 pages, try to maximize things and talk about all you can in those 2 pages. Okay, so that is about it for the application. Now we can take questions and we have our student panel. So we might want to, all the panelists might want to introduce themselves. So Shashara, do you want to take over?
For sure. So I guess before we do the actual panel, maybe just one guideline is that, if people are asking overtly personal questions about like a faculty or staff or student, that's something we cannot answer, I think. But aside from that, we're happy to answer most things. And to maybe like kick off the set of questions, I'm like looking at the questions, and one thing that's very common is what is research ability? Like what demonstrates research ability? And I don't know if, I feel like everyone would have an opinion on this. So maybe we want to go in order of like, I can just call on people and.
Yeah.
Can we just first have everybody go across and introduce themselves before
Yes,
we do this, just
for
really
sure.
quickly, and what your background is?
For sure. Let me type people's names in chat, and all the panelists can just choose that order and just go. Okay. Akanksha, you want to go first?
Okay, yes, I can go first. So my name is Akanksha Athre. I am a fourth year PhD student here, MS PhD student. My area of research is machine learning and privacy and edge computing. It's a little bit of everything. And I'm currently located in Albany, New York, which is 2 hours away from Amherst.
Cecilia, you want to?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cecilia. I am a second year PhD student. My area of research is broadly statistical machine learning and with a specific focus on differential privacy, so privacy preserving machine learning. I'm currently located in Amherst, yeah, that's about it.
I briefly introduced myself before, but my name is Nader Akwari, and I'm a third-year PhD student here. I study natural language processing. Before joining for my PhD, I worked for about a decade. Yep.
Rick?
Hi, I'm Rick. I'm also a third-year MS PhD student. I work on theory, like a lot of complexity algorithms, that kind of stuff. And I am currently in Amherst.
Purity.
Hi, my name is Purity. I am a third-year master's PhD student. I study interpretable machine learning models in healthcare. What else? I'm currently located in Kenya. Yes, Nairobi.
Hi, I'm Zeto, and I'm fourth year MS PhD student. My research area is computer vision and machine learning, especially about self-supervised learning, semi-supervised learning. I'm also quite interested in the application of computer vision in other domains. And I'm currently in Amherst.
Hi, my name is Shishira. I am a third year PhD student, and I used to be an MS student before that. And my areas of interest are NLP and machine learning. Okay, so do we want to jump in, like maybe pick the same order and answer, say what you think is research ability?
Sure. So research ability, there's a certain set of skills that you need for that. One is obviously persistence, because it's not always flowers and unicorns. It's a lot of failures as well with research. So you can persist to something. The other thing that shows research potential is past experience, obviously. So if you had experience in doing research with in your undergrad or in the industry, you want to talk about that. And lastly, you can also show research potential through work that you've done, say that's not research, but you've done these projects through which you have had to derive more insights or do more analysis, that kind of thing. In that type of work, you're generating questions, and you could sort of connect that to developing research questions. And that connects to, again, showing that you have that skill set to do research. And obviously, no one is expecting you to know everything before you come in. So you don't need to have all the skill sets, but you just need to show that you are capable of doing research.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And one extra factor there is probably the ability to learn something really quickly. If you independently learn something and picked it up really quickly, that also shows that you're flexible and you're able to essentially yeah, learn something that is new and that is unfamiliar and do it independently.
I think I would maybe define research as working on problems that don't have an agreed upon solution or answer. And so you have to try out multiple different approaches and see what works. So that goes to what Akanksha was saying about, you know, that you can demonstrate persistence because, you know, you're trying things out and probably failing most of the time. If you're not, then you're not trying enough stuff, or you're not being adventurous enough. So I think if you have projects that can demonstrate that you are working on a problem that is doesn't have a defined answer, and you have to try out a number of different approaches and somehow analyze the approaches to figure out which one actually was best. That is, you know, that's one of the best ways. If you have projects like that, that can help demonstrate your research potential. And those could also be class projects, for example, if you've had to do that for a class project. I think Rick.
I don't have too much to add to that. I also just wanted to say, based on a few questions that I saw on the Q&A bar, is that what research looks like, what CS research looks like, depends on who you ask. It's like, you don't need to have done research in like a very kind of hot topic if you like in CS before applying. It doesn't show your ability or your potential to do research in other topics. And I speak from experience because I didn't have a CS degree before coming in, and that's completely fine. Many people here don't, many people do. If like research potential sounds kind of nebulous or vague, it is because it is. Like you can demonstrate that through various different kinds of ways, and it's sort of really up to you to decide how you want to kind of package that.
I guess what I could add to what's been said is, so I connect research to thinking deeply. So if you write your SOP or your research statement and you're asking these questions that show the person that, you know, you've thought through this matter and you really think that these are open questions that need to be answered, that could be one way that you show your research potential. Another way could be showing that you've worked on a project by yourself, because unfortunately, most of the time, even though you have lab mates, your PhD life is just a solo situation. So you kind of have to show that you've worked on projects from beginning to some level with minimal supervision. So if you've done that for regardless other projects, I think that also counts to you showing that you can actually do research.
Yeah, so besides what other people mentioned, I want to add, like, in terms of personality, I think the curiosity is also very important. If you're curious about a lot of problems, then you will naturally be motivated. And another thing is critical thinking. And this will help you a lot when you read papers and come up with new ideas. And last but not least, another important thing is communication skill. You need to communicate with a lot of people, including your advisor, your lab mates, and this also including writing. You need to write a lot of paper as a PhD student, and this also reflects in your personal statement. You need to write in a very clear way about your prior research. Yeah. And I think like GPA, solid mathematical background and coding skills is also very important. It will help you a lot in your future research. And yeah, that's it.
I also just want to quickly stress out finally the ability to not be let down. But if you fail one time, don't get discouraged. Failure is part of the process. It's actually your friend. So use that. Okay, we'll go through, let's move on to other questions. There's, just quickly, there's a lot of people asking if the international students have access to the application fee waiver program.
Yes, yes. Domestic and international students can certainly apply for a fee waiver.
Awesome, thank you. There's also questions about how the English proficiency scores affect the admission decision. So if, say, a student gets the minimum required score, how will that score affect ultimately the admissions?
So if you have the minimum score, then it really defaults to the faculty member. And often if the faculty feel that the score is, you know, a little on the low side, they will have a Skype or FaceTime conversation with the applicant just to see how communication is between you and the faculty member. So it's, I don't like to say there's a cutoff other than the grad school kind of minimum, because it really does just default to the faculty member. And you have to be able to communicate, of course, in a lab with your lab mates and your advisor. So I think when you meet them in conversation, it really helps. Does that answer the question?
I think so. And if not, feel free to drop another question.
Eileen, I think there's a bunch of questions which you could answer perhaps. But so like last year, I think lots of people deferred admissions, and people ask if I think for the MS and the PhD, is that going to change acceptance rates this year?
Sure, that's a great question. It's something on the minds of a lot of applicants, even for applications we received for this spring. So our fall cohort, an outstanding bunch of students, was unfortunately faced with the inability to travel to campus, many of them. We had about 90 students defer to the spring semester. But we were able to bring in a larger cohort this spring. So we have the students that deferred, plus we were able to do our normal admissions. So we were really fortunate. So it did not impact our spring admissions. Students that were admitted this spring will have to pay a deposit again if they want to defer to the fall. We don't have numbers on that right now, but we do not expect that to impact. And I'm talking about the master's program first. I apologize. That should not impact the fall admissions. As far as the PhD students, we had about 8 PhD students in the fall that had to defer, mostly because they were from embargoed nations and they weren't able to take online classes to get started. But most of them, the remaining group, was either able to arrive here or they could take online classes and start their PhD program remotely. Even without an assistantship, the university provided a tuition waiver. So what happened this year will not impact the numbers of students that they will accept for next fall, because things just moved along as normal.
There's an interesting question about what if one's career is sort of a zigzag with industry experience, research experience in a different field before applying. So how does one show focus? Well, I think it boils down to explain the motivation of what led you to pursue a certain career, certain education. Personally, I did transition from a different field to computer science when I applied to my PhD, but I explained it really well in my statement of purpose. What motivation led me to apply first to a certain kind of master's degree, and then to pursue a certain career, and then to apply to a PhD.
Akanksha, do you want to take that also?
Sure, yeah. So in a way, honestly, that might actually be good, because if you're applying to a PhD program now, you sort of know that this is what you want to do, instead of, sometimes people just apply and they don't end up liking it. So it can also play in your favor that, yeah, you have had industry experience, you've had research experience in a different field, and now you want to do your PhD in this because, you know, based on your experiences, that's what have led you to doing a PhD in computer science. So as long as you're able, like Cecilia said, as long as you're able to explain all your decisions, that is fine. It's not going to show that you're unfocused or don't have a clear goal. I think it can actually play in your favor.
Yeah, I think one other thing I would do if I was the applicant with that profile is use the strengths from my experiences to show why I'm a good candidate. I mean, if you work in industry, there's some skills that you get, like, you know, working independently, making sure you're proficient because you have a manager to report to and stuff like that. If you work in research, then you have a curious mind, you have chance to explore, run experiments, and you can also speak to that regardless of, you know, the specific domain for which you are doing research. So like they said, it doesn't disadvantage you, and you can actually use the skills you've acquired through your experiences to show that you're a good candidate. I think I would write it that way.
I guess I mean, just to also add to that, and maybe going off of Zezu and Purity's comments about research experience, I think that irrespective of which field you were in, or like industry or academia or whatever, I think that meta skill of like being able to ask questions and like think deeply and critique something, I think you can demonstrate that irrespective of the area or the place you did that in. So I think you should aspire to do that. So Eileen, there's a bunch of questions about like GRE and TOEFL and IELTS and all of that. So maybe maybe we can do these questions all in order. So the question is, my IELTS has expired, but my master's is in English in a non-native speaking country. So if my IELTS has expired, should I rewrite the thing? Should I rewrite the IELTS or TOEFL? That's one question. And I guess another question which was voted on pretty heavily was, can you upload a PDF of the TOEFL or GRE scores, or do you need to send them electronically through ETS?
Yeah, these are great questions. The graduate school does require that upon entrance to the program, your TOEFL or your IELTS or Duolingo cannot be expired. So what that means is, as the first, if you're accepted the first day of class, your score has to be valid. So if you took a TOEFL and it's expiring, you know, during the application period, you want to take another one again. You know what I mean? You have to have one to be to start the program, and also you have to have one that's not expired to be admitted. So you have to have it not expired to be admitted and not expired to start the program. It can expire 5 days after the program starts. So next September, you know, 10th or something, it can expire. But it does have to be valid before you're admitted and, you know, start the program. The second part of that, Shashara, was...
Oh, sorry, I meant, so I think,
yep.
Yes, can you upload a PDF? And I think the intent there might be that the PDF is free, but if you send it through ETS, it charges a bunch of money.
Ah, I see.
I don't know if that's true though.
They do require the official score to be sent directly from the testing company. If you want to go ahead and you can put your own score in the application so that we can get that process started, but you have to get that score eventually uploaded, sent directly from ETS or whatever company it is, right to the grad school. So it's an official score. There was another one.
Oh no, I think that's all. That's
oh, okay.
Do we want to take the question about emailing professors?
Okay. So the question is regarding mailing professors. In your experience, is it better to mail the faculty prior to sending applications, asking for their openings, etc., or post-application, just reminding them to have a double look at your application, or no mail it necessary at all? I would highly recommend contacting professors. They will likely maybe not respond to you, which is fine. But I do recommend look at each sending them an email. They just might end up responding. Keep the email short. Don't make it very long. They don't have a lot of time to go through, hundreds of emails like that. So keeping it short would be good. The other thing to check whether they have openings is look at their websites. Typically, they will post whether they're looking for students or not, and that will give you an idea. The other thing to do is contacting their current students and asking them instead. They're more likely to respond to you. And if you ask them, hey, is XYZ taking in more students, or is there more space in your lab, things like that, they will, if they know about it, they will at least let you know. And that way you won't be writing someone's name who's not actually accepting students and wasting that spot for some other professor you could have put on your SOP. So I hope that helps.
I would like to piggyback on that just a little bit, sorry. I have seen recently with one-on-one support, people putting adjunct faculty or professors emeritus as people that they want to work with. Those are usually not people that you're going to be able to work with. Adjunct faculty do not take students typically. Not that I know of. They might be able to co-advise you with somebody if they're there enough, but you need somebody who's going to be a primary advisor. And so, yeah, you need to look for somebody who's either assistant professor or associate professor.
I also just wanted to briefly add that if you do write, which I think a lot of us think that you should, because I don't think you really lose anything by not writing. And if you do get a response back, it's not like a commitment or a contract or anything like that, right? Like, and it works both ways. So like the professor who's responding back to you is not going to be able to say, oh, you should apply because like I'll definitely take you or something like that. Like it's not like that. But you might get, either encouragement or like they might put you in touch with, or they might like make you aware of like other faculty who are working on stuff. This happened to me as well. And on the flip side, you also are not sort of, like that's not like a final confirmation that you have to work with that professor, because a lot of people change their research. Like a lot of people want to switch advisors. A lot of people figure out that they like something else entirely in computer science once they get in or something. So it works in your favor as well. It's just, you can think of it as like maybe a way to put you in the map so that people know sort of like to expect your application when it comes in or something. But again, like everyone else said, like professors get faculty members get a lot of emails, and don't hold out your hopes on like getting a response. It's not personal at all. Like they just don't have time.
Purity, I remember you had a nice story about contacting a professor. Do you want to share that?
Right. So I did contact a professor. They emailed me back. They said, if you do get admitted, it would be nice to chat, whatever. I wanted to work with them, but they were not taking any new students, which I did not do my homework to check their website to see that they were taking students or not. I did not reach out to their students. I did not know that that's something you can do, but now you do know that. So when I got to campus, I went, saw them, thanked them for responding to my email. And actually what came out of that meeting was that they gave me so much useful advice about graduate school. It was like the first week of me being a PhD student, and they just gave me so much advice that to date, I find very useful. Most of it I ignored, and I'm learning the hard way. I should have listened better. But I think that was the best takeaway from that meeting. Sometimes it's the things that you get from meeting an advisor or talking or having them email you back might not be what exactly you want, like them to admit you to their lab maybe, but it will definitely most likely be useful to your time as a PhD student.
Okay, so in my experience, I think it's very useful. I even when I sent to several faculties, and they do respond me and also give me a video call before, and we have a good chat, and he tells me a lot about whether his lab has openings or what is the research like in his lab. And one thing I add is if the professor responds to you, you can like send a follow-up emails after you send your applications. And you can tell them, yes, I've already applied the graduate school. Could you take a look at? I think that is very useful.
We also have questions, sorry, about the interview process. Do all candidates who get admitted get an oral interview, so a live interview? How does that work? Like personally, I was admitted without an interview, so.
I think actually that is one really nice thing about UMass and CICS is when you get accepted, you're not accepted to a specific professor or lab directly. You are accepted to the college, and then you get to decide who you want to work with, or professor gets to see who they want to work with. I really like that because at some other schools I was being recruited by a single faculty member, and I was scared, what if I don't end up liking working with them and things like that. And so to answer the question, some professors might interview you if they're interested in working with you, because then they might give a word that, okay, I might want to take the student in, and then you may get accepted. But you don't have to get interviewed to get accepted to the program, which is a nice thing about UMass, I think.
There's also a question, I guess this is for Eileen. So would you recommend that people who already have master's degrees apply for the MS PhD track to improve their chances of admission? I
don't think that impacts your admission. I think your experience certainly helps. Having the master's degree is well, I guess it depends on what it's in and what your experience is, but I think it would benefit you, but you don't have to choose a track for that reason. The reason we have the MS PhD is because you have to earn an MS before you can earn your PhD. If you already have an MS in the United States or in an English-speaking country, then you don't have to earn a second MS, but some students do. Because maybe you got an MS in linguistics and now you want to earn an MS in computer science and your PhD in computer science. So you have some options, but if you come in with an MS, you can just go right into the PhD track and it's fine.
Another question is, will there be any negative impact on people who didn't accept a deferral offer the last application cycle?
So if they're reapplying, maybe. So a lot of students are reapplying for the master's program because they didn't want to pay, maybe they didn't want to pay the deferral deposit. But no, if someone's reapplying, I want them to put in their SOP that they are reapplying, so that we because it was such a great group last fall in the master's program and the PhD program, but we want to know that they're reapplying because we admitted them first for a reason. So we do want to know that. PhD students, we had a few, like I said, we had a few deferrals, and then I don't think we had any that just didn't defer and reapply.
Okay, so we have the last few questions, and also we are wrapping up. So if there's any more questions, feel free to drop them now. So there's more questions about the TOEFL. There's a lot of questions about the TOEFL and language requirements. So maybe we'll make it extra clear and explicit on our webpage so that all questions are answered. Does everyone agree?
Can I say something about that, Cecilia?
Yeah.
If you go to the admissions website for the university and you click on apply and you click on international students, everything you need to know about the TOEFL or Duolingo or IELTS is there. There's also an email address, gradadm@grad.umass.edu. It's on there. You're going to want to ask them about the TOEFL because the English speaking test is a university requirement. It's not ours. So if you email me, I'm just going to refer you back to that page or that staff, and they're more than happy to help you.
So we will provide a link to that general graduate admissions instruction page on our PhD application super program webpage, so that it's accessible there. All instructions are there, and that's all we know, right? It's not a CICS requirement, it's a graduate school requirement. So let's take another question on, let's see, an unrelated question to applications, but related to student life. How is CICS helping graduate students manage their mental health?
Very good question.
I would say that we have an amazing support staff from the Diversity and Inclusion Office that we have here at the college, and they've set up a number of events for trying to help support students, especially because right now COVID is making it much more difficult for people, and it's harder to communicate. Anybody else have thoughts?
I mean, I guess I would also say that I think the university also has like, I don't know what it stands for, but it's called CCPH, and you can always like call them and like, you know, they will like tie you up with therapists if you need, and they will like, you know, if you're really having trouble. And there was one time when I had a roommate who was really having trouble, and then they will like, you know, they will make sure to call you and check on you, and you know, they're like experts, and they make sure that they're listening to you and telling you what to do. And I thought that was very helpful for me, at least.
Yeah. One other sorry, I'm muted. One other thing is, as graduate students, as graduate employees, we have access to this app called Calm, which is actually pretty handy if you guys use it. And it has, you know, things like you can do meditation on it and other, you know, calming type of activities. And that is actually pretty useful. I find it nice. And the other thing is, I think all the professors, everyone is being fairly accommodating to your circumstances. So, you know, if you want to go back home and work from home remotely, that is allowed, given that, you know, if you don't want to be alone in your apartment or whatever. So there's a lot of flexibility, and I think that's really nice.
One other thing is that the social groups, I found those really helpful for me the first year, especially for international students, because this could be the first time in a foreign country. So it might be helpful if you meet people who have the same culture as you. I found that was a great support system for me. You make friends a lot easier as well, and those can be very helpful for you, at least mentally and psychologically.
Oh, sorry, I guess to tack one more thing on there. I think in the same bucket as the Calm app, I think the graduate student employee union, I think they also, I think you have like a budget of a few $100s, which you can like use towards a whole bunch of different services. Some of them are like a bunch of them are like additional healthcare things, but a bunch of them are also just like, you know, if you want to take tennis lessons, you can do that. And they will like pay you for it. I mean, they will like waive your whatever expenses you incur, or like if you want to go to or if you want to get a massage, you can get that. And I think, yeah, I didn't know about that, but it was quite interesting that exists.
Yeah, to speak about that. Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Nader.
I was just going to say, to speak about that a little bit more, that's all our graduate employee organization. So it's our union that helps do that. And so this is all for, I guess, any graduate student that works as an assistant with an assistantship. That typically is PhD students, though there are a few master's students who get that opportunity as well. It's just I think it possibly Bay State fellows get that. But it is a perk that we have because we have a very strong and really great union here that helps support that.
I think our school also hosts some workshops for like how to improve your sleeping quality, or a bunch of workshops to help you.
There was another question about where graduate students live. I don't see the question anymore. It might be taken down, but to quickly answer that, it's a whole variety of places. Some students live on campus in not dorms, but sort of graduate housing apartments. Those are a little bit more pricier than staying off campus. Some people live in apartments off campus with, roommate or two roommates. And then some people live in sort of not apartments, but like rented houses where, through a landlord, where you live with multiple people. And so there's multiple options. It's not limited to staying on campus.
We have a question about what if someone is pursuing a master's degree and is interested in applying for the fall 2021 cycle, but they're not sure exactly when, like how much their master's degree will be delayed by COVID. So what should they do in that case?
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
I think that the question is like they're not sure that their master's program will finish before the PhD program will start in September.
Oh,
I think you need to have. I'm not sure how that.
It's so different with COVID. So with COVID, they're being a little bit more lax about getting the transcripts. The official transcript before, you had to have it on the first day you started. Now they're giving you a little bit more time because schools do need more time, especially international schools are having a hard time getting the transcripts out. But as far as finishing the program, you should have all your classes completed before you start the program. And you could just ask for a deferral to the next semester. We would work with you on that. You'd want to reach out to me for that.
Okay, thank you.
I see a question about,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I think you're going to ask the same question, which are there any industry collaborations
Yes.
to help summer internships? Okay, for master's or PhD students? Yes. So there are, I think that there's actually, there was another question, I think maybe about international students too, with internships. So internships are available, generally speaking. I think international students have slightly different requirements for when it comes to being able to work in the US. I think they have a total of 12 months that they can work in the US throughout their entire PhD experience. So that could be spread out in a few different internships, or maybe even 2 different long internships of like 6 months or something like that. I think technically places like Google or Facebook that are very large have offices in other countries that you can go work at. So if you do go work at one of those companies, you could theoretically work at one of their international locations as well, in order to circumvent only getting 12 months worth of internship. Mm-hmm. But there are plenty of opportunities. Our faculty know lots of people in industry in order to help facilitate that. We have a careers office that does lots of different events in order to facilitate people being able to get internships and so forth. We even have people who come for sort of on-campus, when we did have on-campus events before COVID, that would do special career fairs for particular companies as well.
I would also add to that, which is about a very specific thing, which is so there's a class which I think Andrew, who's my advisor, teaches, where you where there are industry labs who have specific projects, and students enroll in the class and actually work on the projects that are proposed by the industry folks. And very often these classes will lead to either publications, or they will lead to students being given internships at these companies. So it's like, you work a semester, you do a project, and at the end of the semester, very often people will end up interning in the company, and it's pretty nice.
Quickly to take another question, if you're only admitted to the MS program, how can we go about converting that to a PhD program? You would have to go through the typical application process again, which is applying to the PhD program. But the nice part is that if you're already here, then you get to talk to professors directly and things like that. So that might help, but you would have to go through the application process.
But I mean, to add to that, as somebody who made that transition, I think I know of people who sort of were admitted as MS students and started working with faculty. And I think even the website now has a short blurb which says that, I mean, if you're able to find a faculty member who is willing to take you on as a PhD student, even a semester after the MS, I think that's a thing that's happened to a handful of people. But in my case, I actually got through the MS entirely and then transferred to the PhD.
I can comment on that. We have about 4 or 5 a year master's students who do independent studies with faculty, and because we have really amazing master's students, and they do a great project with faculty and they get recruited to become a PhD student. And usually this happens after 1 or 2 semesters of doing some independent study work. It's a really great way to get into the PhD program, because you get to know CICS and everything, their community, and then the faculty, and then you can say, oh, I really like it here. The one thing about being a master's student and then applying to the PhD program is you can do it off cycle. So it can be done in the spring and it can be done over the summer. So these are, there's a little bit more flexibility for those students.
So I guess we have very little time left. I think we had one final question that we're going to have all the panelists answer, which is, what is one thing you wish you knew before applying that would have made your application stronger? So maybe we can go around with the same ordering that we did earlier. I think Kangsha was first.
Okay. I think one thing that I wish I knew before applying was actually about contacting professors beforehand. It's, I think, not just useful at UMass, but useful anywhere, because there's nothing to lose there. If they do reply back, it's great. If they don't, it's okay, doesn't matter. But at least you can do that. So I think that would have been a really nice addition to everything else I did. The other thing was actually knowing about letter writers. I did get a high profile person at my university write a letter for me, but they didn't talk about my research experience. And so so I had 2 people that did talk about research experience and one that didn't. And maybe having the third one, as knowing that in advance, that maybe having the third one talk about my research experience would have been a little bit nicer, even if they weren't high profile.
Yeah, I also wish I had contacted more people, but frankly, I think I'm happy with the application I put together. I was pretty confident about it, but I did apply while working full time. And because time was very limited on my end, I decided that I would not contact professors. I didn't contact any professor. I just applied to programs and maybe named people on my statement of purpose. Sometimes I didn't even name people on my statement. So I wish I had, I had the time to do that kind of research and emailing a bit more extensively. But yeah, I was still very fortunate to end up working with someone amazing, and I enjoyed my research. I ended up with the right person as my advisor. But if you can identify people who are a great match for you as a person, as a researcher, then that's time well spent.
I think one thing that I wish I had known when I'm writing my statement of purpose is not to focus on any negatives or to try to explain them. I probably spent the first third of my SLP talking about trying to explain why I had a lower GPA score or something like that. And this is, somebody who had been out in industry for over a decade working and demonstrating their capability. Had I known better, I wouldn't have done that. So don't try to undermine yourself by sort of, focusing on details that are less important. What they really care about is that you have drive, perseverance, and that you can demonstrate that you have skills that would be useful for research. So.
I mean, that's a great point, Meredith. Thank you. And I would reiterate the same thing. I guess for me, the one thing in hindsight that I wish I had done a little bit more was to when I was applying, I looked exclusively at the theory, the core group of theory folks here, because that was my primary interest above everything else. And then I found out when I was here that there were actually plenty of people sort of working very closely at the interstices of theory and other related areas who, I then kind of had the opportunity to work with, and I loved it. And I wish that I had known a little bit about that coming in, because I would have, wanted to, well, I guess as a tactic, wanted to mention it in my application, but also I would have wanted to know, just coming in, right? It's a really nice department in that respect.
Yeah, for me, I guess a little bit of what Nada talked about. So culturally, it can be seen as being proud and ringing your bells if you write your statement a certain way. So some cultures emphasize humility, which can be misinterpreted to be, I am going to showcase my weaknesses so that I don't come off as arrogant in my application. In academia, it really does not matter. So be sure to show off your strengths. Of course, if you failed, it's okay to also say that, but don't write it as a weakness and trump yourself. Do not have those edge statements that were discussed by Akansha. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is when I was researching professors that I wanted to work with, I would look at them and see whether they were a big deal, whatever that means. So this is an application thing that students do. They're like, oh, this person is so famous, they're so known, honestly, I have found in my experience that those professors have very little time to work with their students, unfortunately. So for me, I think the hype should be less important to what you're passionate about. So if you find a problem you really care about, and if you have extra time to research about the faculty you're interested with and talk to their students about them, their personality, see if you can get along with them better. I think that's more important than say their H index or something else. So for me, if I went back, I would do that differently.
Okay. So actually, I'm very happy with my application, and I feel very lucky to be here. But one thing I'd like to maybe mention is if back to my application time, I would try my best to gain more research experience and also talk to more people in this field. Like, for example, I'm working in computer vision. You may want to talk to people that are already working in this area for a long time. They know a lot of research has great reputation and labs that pretty good or good fit for your prior research. Yeah.
I guess I would. Oh, sorry, Akanksha, please go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sure. No, it's fine.
I guess I would, yeah, I think I was also pretty happy with my application, but I guess I have one sort of, not directly the question, but sort of one regret maybe in a sense is that I think that I would, I was sort of thinking that, oh, I got this master's and now I must do this PhD or whatever else. So I had the opportunity to go work somewhere. I wish I had, sometimes I wish I had taken it. I think it's okay to like not do the thing you're supposed to do in a sense. Maybe take that time to like find your values. Maybe take time to like not, grind the grind in a sense. But I think that's okay, and I wish I had done that. But that said, I still think that I would do what I'm doing now. No doubt.
I have one more thing to add, which I forgot to mention, which is I didn't know that I could contact like people, like current students in labs. And they are more likely to respond to you than any professor you email. And I mean, don't go emailing like every single student at UMass, but if you really want to know about a professor, they are a great way to find out information. And so do that.
We also have new faculty that have joined this past fall. We have new faculty joining in the spring and new faculty joining next year. So I recommend that you look at the faculty web pages for the new faculty, because they're going to be looking for students for sure. So it's a good opportunity, and they're from all different backgrounds, all different areas of research. Really great people, actually. I've met most of them. So
awesome. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending this webinar. I hope this was helpful in some way to you. We will send a follow-up email with personal email IDs of all of us, our group email ID, and we still have spots for one-on-one support if you're interested in availing that. Only a few spots left, and we will also. I was going to say one more thing. We will. Anyway, we'll send a follow-up email, and we'll also ask if you can fill out a survey on how we performed in this webinar. That would be great for future, making this even better for next year. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I also dropped our email address in case you have further questions about the one-on-one or about the rest of the program. Our mail address is in chat. Thank you.